everyone, welcome back to a new video and welcome to my July plan with me video. First up, let's talk about the things that I did in June. And so I watched back on my June plan with me and I think I accomplished everything that I set out to do. The first thing that I talked about was to finish my romance novel in June, and I actually accomplished this before June. I think I finished it on the 29th of May or the 30th of May, and I have a whole vlog up on my channel where I finished that book, so I can link that in one of these corners and also in the description, because then you will get the whole story of me finishing that book. And then I talk about editing this project. Today it's June the 28th. Yeah, the 28th of June, so it's a couple of days left in the month and I have begun to edit the romance novel. I actually began this 2 days ago because, like I talked about in that video, I have 3 weeks now off from work, and so I was away for a whole week and I tried to do that whole social media detox thing that I talked about. I managed to do that in like half a week, and then during that week it happened something very exciting, so I couldn't really stay off from Instagram. But now after that I have still more time away from work, and so now I think it's the perfect time for me to edit that book. So I began 2 days ago. The first day after we got home, I sat down and I opened up my Word document. And so I will not finish the edit of this book in June, but I will definitely try to finish it in July. So I will talk about that in July plans a little bit later. The last couple of days leading up to our going home, I was beginning to feel really excited about this book. I was thinking about it more. At that point I had been away from it for almost 3 weeks, so I would suggest having a break longer than that, because then you can really take a step away from your project. But I felt like I didn't have time for that, so I'm doing it this way instead. But 3 weeks away, and I knew that I was gonna edit it when I got home, so I was beginning to think about it a lot more. I'm finding it really fun, and the first chapter is from my male point of view, and I didn't really know if I managed to get him as grumpy as I envisioned him in the first chapters. Let's just say he is very grumpy, and it's the perfect kind of tension, and I think it's a good first chapter. But with that said, I'm not very objective when it comes to this, because I have written this to my own taste. This is something that I would like to read and something that I find fun writing. So I mean, it's kind of written for me. I wrote it for me and other readers like me. So it's difficult to edit. But what I talked about in that video that I have then changed my mind on, because in that video I said that I was gonna do a whole new Scrivener document and I was gonna go through all the chapters, trying to remember what all the chapters were, what happened in the chapters, what they meant, now that I had finished the book. But the first couple of chapters that I read, I didn't really remember anything that I had written, because I was sitting there thinking, what the hell is gonna happen in the next chapter? And now that I'm at the inciting incident, I know what's gonna happen now. But in the first couple of chapters, I didn't remember what I had written. So that felt like pushing it maybe a little bit, trying to remember every single chapter, trying to get that dramatic curve and the 3-act story structure. So what I'm doing instead is I'm going through it chapter by chapter, sentence by sentence, fixing continuity errors, because I have already stumbled across some. You know, when you read maybe to chapter 5 and then you notice something you have written in chapter 5 that didn't make sense because maybe it didn't happen in chapter 4, or it happened a different way in chapter 4. You have to go back to chapter 4 and then back again to chapter 5 and go back and forth to fixing that continuity error. And I managed to edit, I think, 4 chapters or 3 chapters yesterday, so I am on chapter 6. I'm definitely not gonna finish it in June, but hopefully I will finish it in these 2 weeks that I'm off from work, because I'm gonna go full-time work mode the following weeks after that. So I'm hoping that I can get this done before that, send it into the contest, and then I can jump into book 2 of Gods After Ruin. And then another fun thing that happened in June, which was during that 1 week where I tried to be off from all of social media, I get an email from my publisher saying that my book had been reviewed by this librarian source organization. I don't know what it's called in English. That's called BTJ or BTJ in Sweden. And this is a source for all the libraries in Sweden to go and look for books that they want to purchase to their libraries. So I don't think I'm explaining this very well in English, but it's called Bibliotekstjänst in Sweden, and a lot of Swedish, I think all Swedish libraries use this to gather information on what books are coming out, and they take into consideration these reviews and the rating that the books get. And so I was shaking when I got this email. I was so excited, and I jumped straight into reading the review, and I didn't really even read the review. I just looked down onto the score that my book got. It's a scale between 1 to 5. My book got 5 out of 5. from this editor. It's so rare for a fancy novel to be reviewed and put into these kind of sheets, because there's not a lot of traditionally published fancy in Sweden, and even the maybe translations from English to Swedish from the bigger publishers in the fancy genre, they don't really show up in BTJ. Even my debut, a debut fancy novel, for that to get a review in itself was unexpected. For me, honestly, I didn't expect a review from BTJ. And then for my book to get 5 out of 5, that was really freaking cool. And I got so freaking excited, and my publisher, they put up a picture and I put up a picture. I am so happy that my book got 5 out of 5, because this just means that probably a lot more libraries would take in the book than if I wouldn't have gotten a review. And this felt like such a big deal to me, because I'm studying to be a librarian. I have worked at like 2 libraries now, and I love working at libraries. It's one of the best things that I've ever done in my life. Just knowing that when I get back from my vacation or off time from work, some of my colleagues may have seen that, and it just gets me really excited, because I was so nervous of getting even a review. But if I got a review, I thought that I was gonna get a 2-star or at best 3-star, or not star rating, but a 2 or a 3 rating, and then I got a 5. It's freaking mind-blowing, okay? And I am very happy about this, so I'm just gonna put this out there. But that was everything that happened in June, I guess. I was away in June. It was a very fun, relaxing time. I read a lot in June, actually, so we're gonna talk about that later. But first off, we're gonna talk about my goals for July. So first off, my goal is of course to finish my romance novel, to edit that whole way through. I'm on chapter 6. I'm finding it really funny, but there's a lot of going back and forth, because this is kind of more of a proofread than an copy edit or developmental edit. I know it sounds weird, but I think, at least for the first chapters now, where I'm at, the book is good. I have the inciting incident down, and I know it's gonna work. Like, the first couple of chapters is very, I think, interesting. It's gripping, and hopefully it's gonna be enough for at least, hopefully, one publisher to want to keep reading and maybe publish the book. Fingers crossed. I'm finding this very fun, and I found it very fun to write this book, so I would like to continue writing romance. The things that I'm a little bit nervous about is the maybe 10 chapters before the midpoint, because I did change the time span of which this book took place. So first it was just 2 weeks, but then I changed it to 4 weeks, or a whole month. So going forward now in the book, I'm looking at those things, the continuity. But anyway, I'm gonna edit the book in July, and of course I can't go without mentioning that in July, my debut novel, Gods of Art and Ruin, a Swedish fancy novel, or fancy romance I would say, is being published on the 26th of July, and I'm gonna actually try to take some photos of this book now to open up bookings. To the people that want to buy a signed copy from me, I'm gonna try to take some photos, put that up on my Instagram and on my TikTok, and when you see this, I have probably already posted that, because on the 8th of July, the bookings for the book box where this book is in, and also 2 other fancy novels, is going live. So you will be able to get your hands on this book and also 2 other novels, which I'm so excited about. I've already booked my own. Of course I have. I want to own my own book, and I want to open up my own book box with you. So if you are interested in wanting to buy your own signed copy of this book, I only ship inside of Sweden as of now, but if you're interested, please DM me on Nea.andherbooks on Instagram. So that's the beginning of July. The 8th of July, you're gonna be able to book that book box. I can link the publisher's website where you book the book box in the description below, but it will go live on the 8th, just to mention that again. And then on the 26th, my book is being published. So that's the biggest thing that is happening in July. And I will be doing a trip to go help pack the book box and sign all the books in July as well. So that is also a fun thing happening. And around that same time, Taylor Swift is dropping its tickets here in Sweden. And she also just added another date. So there's 2 dates in Stockholm, Sweden. I couldn't be more excited. July is gonna be a book publishing month. July is gonna be an editing month. July is gonna be a, hopefully, Taylor Swift ticket hunting month. And what I was trying to say is that around that time as well, I will get to know if I have gotten into the school that I want to study at this upcoming fall. That is what's happening in July. But now let's talk about the books that I read in June. So a book that I finished on the 30th of May that I didn't get to talk about in that video is The Risk by Elle Kennedy, and I gave the book 4 stars. It's the second book in the Briar University series. It's a hockey romance, a steamy hockey romance. I talked about in the last video that I was in a reading slump, and this definitely got me out of there. It was fast-paced, it was fun, it was steamy. Honestly, it was better than the first one. It was a forbidden romance between like the star hockey player on one team and the daughter of the coach of another team. It was a lot of tension, it was kind of hate to love. It was really freaking good. And then I finished a Swedish novel, which is Blått blod, rött hjärta by Veronica Almér, and I gave the book 5 stars. I finished this very early on in June, and I maybe talked about it in the last video. It was a fun, also kind of hot and steamy romance comedy. It was fast-paced, it was a really bit ridiculous at times, and the ending was very over the top, but I loved every single second of it. Then I read Love Theoretically by Ali Hazelwood, and I got my hands on this even before the release date of it, which is why I finished it on the 14th of June, because it was published the 13th of June, but it was in, like, I was going to my grandparents, and so I was taking the train, but then at the station they had a bookshop, and I always tend to go in there before going to my grandparents because I'm just killing some time. And then I saw that they had this book, and I really enjoyed The Love Hypothesis, but I absolutely loved Love on the Brain, which is her second novel. And so this was one of my most anticipated books of the year. I started reading it on the train, and then I read it. I finished it the 14th of June. Sadly, I didn't like the book as much as I loved Love on the Brain. I gave the book 4 stars because it was still really good. I liked the tension, and I liked the kind of stereotypical thing that Ali Hazelwood books now have, when the heroine is really small and the hero is really big, and the kind of tension, like he has liked her all along, she didn't really know this, which was also the thing with Love on the Brain. But I just found Love on the Brain so much more like compelling with the characters, especially because I found it really difficult to picture the male character of this book. And then the female character has this thing where she portrays like a different version of herself for every single person, kind of like Mirrorball by Taylor Swift, that kind of vibe. She feels like she can't really be herself. So I think it was because of that she was portraying a bunch of different personas for different people, that I couldn't really get deep into her person and then to connect to the male character as well, because he was very stoic, he didn't really show any emotions, and it was really hard to connect to him. But then I listened to Romancing Mr. Bridgerton, and I gave it 4 stars. It's the 4th book in the Bridgerton series, and it's Colin and Penelope's story. And I wanted to read this before the 3rd season came out, which I think is still a long way like to go. I think it's gonna be out in like winter or something this year. But I was actually really disappointed, because in my head I had made up this picture of her hearing people talk about this book on like TikTok, on Instagram, that it's gonna be really like tension filled, that it's gonna be steamy. They talked about the mirror scene and the carriage scene, and it has been hyped so much, but I was so disappointed, especially in the like carriage scene and the mirror scene. And I was like, is this really what everyone's hyping up? I couldn't like understand the hype when it came to those scenes especially, but in the tension, and I'm not gonna spoil it, but it happened something in this book, and I would have liked a more slow burn thing for them, and maybe more of a friends to enemies to lovers, because maybe they're gonna do that in the show, and I'm hoping for that to be in the show. But really early on in the book, and we got this in the 2nd season of Bridgerton, the TV show, really early on in the book, I think in the epilogue or prologue, I mean, Colin Bridgerton said something that Penelope didn't really like and made her feel awful about herself. He said something that he would never marry Penelope Featherington, and that was like in the prologue. So I thought that we would be getting like a friends to enemies to lovers kind of deal, but it wasn't that. They were friends the entire time, and it was a friends to lovers kind of thing, and I was expecting more from it, okay? But I still give it 4 stars because I like the Bridgerton books a lot. And then I read a Swedish novel which is called Lika grannar leka bäst, and it's by Olivia Reimhagen, and I gave the book 4 stars. It was so fun. They're having this prank war against each other. The male character has liked her all along. I do like that kind of trope, and I think I'm gonna put it in the 2nd book, the sequel to this romance book that I'm writing. The one thing that is my biggest like complaint of this book is that I think they got together way too soon, and I found this with a lot of romance, that when the characters get together really early on, the tension drops really fast, because the tension is building on them two getting together or not. So when that happens, it's like, well, I'm not interested in anything now. Why am I gonna keep reading? Overall, when I read romance novels where they get together really early on, that tends to be the case for me, and that's my biggest complaint, I guess. I would have liked the tension to be drawn out even more than it was in this book, but I still gave it 4 stars. So it was really cute, it was funny, and it was also a representation of the, I believe, ace spectrum in this book, or at least representation of LGBTQ, which I find very important, and especially now reading that in June for the Pride Month was very fun. Give it 4 stars. But now let's talk about the books that I'm currently reading, and that is still The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I have not read that at all this month. I'm taking a little bit of a break from it because I felt like it was really slow. I feel like this was gonna be my work book. I'm gonna take it to work if it's a really like slow morning at work or slow evening, because I'm gonna work like late evenings as well. If that is the case, I might pick up this book. But then I'm also currently reading a Swedish book which is called Bortom dimman by Veronica Almer, the same person that wrote Blått blod, rött hjärta. I have read like a few pages of this. I have borrowed it from the library, and I'm thinking that when I finish the book that I'm currently like actually reading, I'm gonna read that book. And the book that I'm talking about, that I'm currently reading, is What Lies Beyond the Veil by Harper L. Woods. And this is the first book in the Of Flesh and Bone series. I think it's 3 or 4 books already out in the series. It's a fancy romance, and I'm actually liking it very, very much. It's very fast paced, it has typical like tropes, it is tension filled, so I would definitely recommend you to pick that up if you're interested in like fancy romance at the moment. I just, after finishing that Swedish romance book, I felt like reading fantasy again, which felt really, really good. So that's really it for my reading at the moment. And also, what I didn't mention was that I did finish my beta read for that book of my friends. So I did finish that in June as well, and that is also a book. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. Leave a like and a comment below and let me know what you did in June and what your plans are for July. And don't forget to subscribe, because I post a new video every week, every Thursday, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!